Hi, I have a question for you. Do you ever feel like you're going through life and like something is holding you back, but you're not sure what it is? And it could be a lot of things, but it's not your family. It's not really your job. It's not it's not a relationship necessarily, and it's not anything you can define. But you just feel like there's something holding you back. I have a cold right now, so sorry about that. In any case, you feel like there's something holding you back and you don't know what it is. Well, we're going to talk today about how to live an anchorless life. And I live in a seafaring neighborhood, or area. We have fishermen and shipping boats and kayaks and sea-doos and what else do we have? Surfboards. I go to a church that has a lot of surfers. So on a lot of these boats, you need an anchor. But on some of them, anchors are prohibitive. So if you're trying to use a sea-doo or a surfboard or a kayak, unless it's a fishing kayak, of course, then maybe you do want an anchor. But otherwise, those types of crafts are designed to be in movement. They're not designed to have an anchor. So even a canoe, usually you don't have an anchor on a canoe, and it might actually tip your boat over, I would think. In any case, there's a lot of vessels that you don't want an anchor on. And as we're going through life, we kind of want to surf the waves of life, right? That's kind of exciting. So how do we do that? How do we live life without having something that's holding us back? And what is that thing that's holding us back? Well, one thing that it might be is guilt and shame. So guilt and shame are two things that are really, really important when you're dealing with recovery, especially. But all of us can relate to this, right? We all have things in our past that we have felt guilty about or that we've been ashamed of. And guilt and shame are like anchors that tie us to that event in our past, to that thing that happened. And they keep us bound to that. So we don't ever actually really move forward. So every time something else comes along that reminds us of that, we automatically refill that guilt and shame again. And that's not a good thing. So how do we move forward? Well, what's the thing that attaches the anchor to a boat? Could be a rope, could be a chain, right? Well, for the purpose of this illustration, let's use a chain because I think it makes a lot more sense on how to overcome guilt and shame. Because guilt and shame happen at different events of our life. They don't all occur all at once, and each time another event occurs that causes us to feel guilt or shame, then we automatically add another chain to that, add another link to that chain, and our anchor gets heavier. I have either RSV or COVID, so it's really good to be home right now, but not good to be doing a video. So anyway, each of these events is something that causes our anchor to get heavier. So how do we get rid of that? Well, let's just pretend that you were 3 years old and an event that happened to you was that your mom made cookies and she was having a party of all of her friends. Maybe they were going to play bunco or some other thing. And gin rummy, I don't know, canasta. That's what my mother used to play. I'm kind of showing my age, but maybe they're into that again these days. But they're going to play some kind of game together, and she's the hostess, and she needs to provide cookies for everyone. So she does this, and she makes all these great cookies. Well, you're 3 years old, and a cookie sounds really good, right? So at 3 years old, you stole a bunch of cookies from the cookie jar. And your mother found out about it, but it was too late for her to be able to make more cookies for her event. So mom's kind of embarrassed because she is not going to be the great hostess now. And she's really mad at you because you did something that you knew you weren't supposed to. But you weren't trying to ruin her event. You were actually trying to pay her a compliment. Her cookies were great. And you wanted a cookie. And so you went ahead and you ate the cookie. Well, then she had a friend come over, and the friend did not know how to deal with being the last one to get there and not have a cookie. Everyone else got one, and she thought, well, maybe so-and-so's not coming because she's late. Well, she got there late and then she didn't get a cookie. And then she found out that you stole a bunch of cookies from the cookie jar. And so both your mom and her friend put shame on you. And they heaped this shame on you and guilt. And your mother, from that time forward, started to call you her little thief. And that nickname stuck with you for the rest of your life. Now, you knew that you weren't a thief. You had no malicious intent. You were 3 years old. You just wanted a cookie. But that one event in your life began to shape the rest of your life. And for the rest of your life, your whole family called you the little thief. And it was a story that everyone told to any newcomer that came to the house. And eventually, at some point in junior high or high school, or maybe even as an adult, you just decided, what the heck, I've already got the label. I might as well just go and do the thing. Maybe if I just do the deed, then I can actually feel guilty about something that I did on purpose. So you actually become a thief. So now you have guilt upon guilt upon guilt. And you had shame upon shame upon shame because your family kept shaming you your whole life. And you know, what can you do about that? So to overcome this, we need to go back to that initial event. And at that initial event, there was a lot of things that happened. And each event is like a link in that chain. And we need to look at each event for what's inside each event. And if we do that, we can start to break those chains. Now, if you break the chain of an anchor, what happens to the anchor? It falls away, right? So we want to get this anchor to fall away, and we want to release ourselves so that we can go forward in life. So we do that by looking at each event. Now, in this first event, you have to forgive yourself for one thing. You did take the cookies from the cookie jar. Sorry. You know, we have to take responsibility for the thing that we did. That's one of the things that we learn in the 12-step programs, is that we have to take responsibility for the things that we did. But you didn't have malicious intent. You didn't intend to hurt anybody. Nobody died. It wasn't a serious event. Nobody was maimed. But, you know, people were hurt. Feelings were hurt. And so you need to forgive yourself for hurting people's feelings too. But here's the reality. You also need to forgive some other people there. Do you know who they are? Like your mom. You have to forgive your mom for heaping her shame on you because she felt shame because she didn't have enough. And she was embarrassed. And so she then labeled you for life. So you need to forgive her for labeling you. And then you need to forgive this other lady who, in her immaturity, didn't know how to forgive a 3-year-old and didn't know how to not make it about herself. And so she needs to be forgiven too because she participated in that. And then after you do that, you need to forgive your family for over and over and over heaping shame on you and labeling you. So you see, guilt and shame are two different things. Guilt is a legal term, and it means that there's something that you can do to make restitution, to some way rectify, apologize, pay back, prove that you've changed, earn back trust. There's something that you can do to fix guilt. And in this situation, when you were 3 years old, could you fix anything there? Did you make enough money at 3 years old to be able to pay your mom back? At 3 years old, could you go to the store and buy her some really beautiful dessert that she could share with her friends? At 3 years old, could you even make the cookies? Well, unless you're kind of a savant, probably not. So there's nothing at 3 years old that you could have done except say that you were sorry. And truly, that should have been enough at 3. But it wasn't. So they heap shame on you. And shame is different than guilt. Shame is an identity issue. Shame is something that we take upon ourselves. Either somebody cast it on us and we accepted it, or we placed it on ourselves. And we began to wear it like clothing. and say, this defines who I am. And it's not always something that we do to ourselves, but if we accept it and we start to believe it, then it is something that we do to ourselves. Because we took it on. We didn't need to take on their shame. We didn't need to take on the things that they were casting on us, but we did. So we need to forgive others for putting shame on us, but we also need to forgive ourselves for accepting the shame. And as we begin to do all of this and we begin to unload this one little event that ended up marking our entire life, we begin to see how it's affected us through the rest of our life and how we expected people not to trust us because we had an identity as a thief, or we expected people to label us incorrectly because it's happened to me my whole life. So we bring some of those things onto ourselves too. So as these things come up and we realize, oh wow, I accepted shame for that, then we need to forgive ourselves and we need to forgive others. And as we do that, we can move on. Now, let me explain forgiveness, because it's kind of like this weird term. You know, people get kind of funky about forgiveness. They make it this like once and all thing. And it's not a once and all thing. Forgiveness is kind of like pulling out dandelions or, you know, digging up bamboo. You think you've done it and then you have to go back and do it again, because it's really attached to all these other events in our life. So I started with a 3-year-old event because that 3-year-old event started to shape your life. And so forgiveness is something that you're going to have to work on a little bit at a time. And forgiveness doesn't mean the other person's not responsible for what they did. Your mom still needs to be responsible for labeling you inappropriately, for blaming you, and for not protecting you from another person's selfish intent. The other lady needs to be forgiven for not dealing with her own issues. And, you know, you can't make those things happen. You can't make them resolve their guilt. All you can do is work on your own guilt. You can't work on anybody else's. All you can do is work on your own shame. You can't work on anybody else's. And you can't fix anybody else. So, what does forgiveness do and what does it mean? Forgiveness means this, and I want you to hear this. It's really, really, really important. Forgiveness means that you are letting go of any kind of animosity or bad feelings. You're letting go of all the negativity that's surrounding that event. You're letting go of wanting to enact retribution. You're just releasing it. And you're not releasing it so that they don't have any responsibility. You're not releasing it for that reason. You're releasing it because it's good for you. Because if you don't release it, it's like every time that chain gets broken, you go and attach 2 pieces together again because you want to keep the anchor on. So do you really want to keep guilt and shame around, or you just want to let them go? It's just letting go. Just let go of all that negative stuff. And it's hard sometimes. And sometimes there's so many layers of stuff that's in an event that it's hard to unpack what's going on. Some of you have been abused and you weren't protected by the other people in your family. Some of you decided that you would accept the abuse to protect other younger brothers and sisters. You know, there's a lot of stuff that happens, that there's so many layers of things that we need to let go of. So just start today with one thing. Go back to the earliest memory you have and start to unpack that. Who do you need to forgive? What things do you need to let go of so that you can move forward in life? It's about helping you move forward. It's not about the other person. It's not about fixing the event. It's just about letting it go and letting the universe do what it needs to do to take care of that person. Now, some things, there are consequences that people should have consequences. Those are legal issues. And they may have actual guilt, but don't make it your job to be the judge, the jury, and all that. Just turn it in and let it go. and you'll feel a lot better. And you'll get to really enjoy riding those waves if you're on a surfboard, or riding the current in your kayak or your canoe, or jumping the waves in your sea-doo. So I hope that you are able to let go of some of the things that are holding you back and binding you to your past so that you can move forward in life. So please subscribe if you liked this video. And if you want to delve into this a little bit more in detail in your own life and work through some things that you need to let go of, I would love to spend time with you and help you live your best version of you, because that's what this is all about, helping you live your best you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.